And good morning again. David Axelrod is in the studio with us. Good morning, Mr. Axelrod. So the president says the only way to get Republicans to go along with extending unemployment benefits and keeping the same tax rates for middle and lower income people is to also extend those rates, what some people call tax cuts, for the upper income groups as well. The Republicans, most of them seem to love it. The liberal Democrats are in a rage. So what do you do now?
Well, first of all, let's be clear. What we agreed to is not just extending the tax cuts from the Bush era, but also some tax cuts that were that we passed 2 years ago that go right to middle-class families for college, for child tax credit. It also includes a payroll tax cut of 2%, so people will have more money to spend in the coming year. And it includes business tax cuts. For example, if you own a business, you can buy equipment next year under this plan and defer your taxes on that purchase. This is going to help our economy move. And that's why, Bob, all economists who have looked at this have said this will put a real charge into the economy. It'll add a point or a point and a half to our growth next year. That means more jobs. That means better news for the American people.
So why is the left side of your party, why are the liberal Democrats so against this? And I mean, they're not just against it, they're mad about it, they're in a rage. I mean, there's somebody in the House using the F word to describe the president.
There are people on both sides of the aisle, Bob, who have been unhappy because the nature of compromise is that you have to accept some things that you don't like in order to get the things that you do. There are things that the Republicans did not want. They did not want the child tax credit. They did not want the college tax credit. They didn't want to extend the full earned income tax credit. These that help people down the income scale. They wanted high income tax cuts, and they wanted to expand the estate tax exemptions.
So what about
and so
these
we
liberals?
had to make a compromise to get to where we are. Understand that if we don't, taxes are going to go up. The average person is going to see a $3,000 tax increase on January 1st. 2 million people will lose their unemployment insurance, and that safeguard will go away, and our economy would take a tremendous hit. So faced with that deadline, we made a good deal for the American people.
Well, do you think the liberals and a lot of these Democrats are just being unrealistic about this?
Well, look, I'm not going to denigrate them because they have strong feelings, as we do, about whether these high-income tax cuts are the right thing to do at this time with the deficits. That's why we limited it to a temporary tax cut, and the same is true with the estate tax. They have valid concerns. The question is, when you weigh all of it, is it a net winner for the American people? Is it important for our economy? I think the answer to that is yes, and I think many will come to that conclusion over the coming days.
Well, you're not going to denigrate them, but they don't seem too embarrassed to denigrate the president. I mean, some of this language that they're using to describe the president, telling him basically to shove it.
You know what? The President of the United States has bigger concerns, and those concerns are people who are sitting at home wondering whether they're going to be paying higher taxes on January 1st, the people who are sitting home who are between jobs because of this economic downturn and are relying on unemployment insurance to get them through this holiday season. Those are his concerns, and I think he's properly focused.
Let me ask you, you said in an interview on NPR, you call this deal a framework. Does that mean that there may be some give in here? The president said that.
I think what was agreed to is substantially what people will vote on, Bob. There have been the House, some in the House raised concerns about the absence of an extension of a renewable energy tax credit. That has now been added back in. But in the main, I think that the vote that's going to be taken is on this framework. I don't see huge changes here.
But you would be open maybe to some changes, but you're saying you don't see anything major.
What we want to make sure is that we don't get into a kind of Washington-style gridlock where this flows over into the new year and we send our economy in the wrong direction. We see taxes go up on all Americans and unemployment insurance collapse. That would be a bad result.
One of the things that is being talked about, you're talking about on inheritance taxes. Liberals want an exemption of $3.5 million on estates for individuals, and then want to tax the rest at a 45% rate. The deal that the president has apparently worked out with the Republicans, as I understand it, exempt $5 million and then tax the rest of it at 35%. Do you see any give in that?
You know, again, I think the framework that is in place is probably the one we're going to vote on. We agree with the members who want the lower number. That's our position. But temporarily, for the next 2 years, we're willing to accept the higher number. But in exchange for that, we demanded that we extend the child tax credit, the college tax credit, the earned income tax credit, and we got these additional tax cuts that are going to be very helpful to people across this country.
Just on the counting of votes, this Sunday morning, do you think that you have the votes to pass this in both the House and Senate?
I believe that this will pass. The President's been talking to members. We're all talking to members, and the members are talking to each other. I think that we will get there. I don't think anybody wants to be responsible for taxes going up on January 1st because we couldn't come to a resolution. But there'll be serious discussions between now and the Senate votes tomorrow. I think the House will get to it later in the week, I hope. And but at the end of the day, I believe it's going to come together.
But is what you're saying to me is you don't have the votes yet, but you think by the time it comes to a vote, we'll have them?
I'm saying to you, I'm confident that we will move forward and take this step to avoid a tax increase and to move the economy forward.
You know, I remember one of the things the president said back during the campaign was, this is not about me. But, you know, as we look at this, it seems to be all about him. I mean, you know, you got the liberals saying he's caved, he's not fighting hard enough. You got some of the Republicans saying he's trying to lead us down a socialist road. Has it become all about this president?
No, I think it's all about the American people, Bob, and that's where our focus has to be. It's easy in this town to get distracted by the noise coming from all directions, and you can get so absorbed by that you don't move forward and do the things that are necessary for the American people. In this case, it's absolutely necessary that we get this done, and I think the President's done the right thing by focusing on what's important. You know, the rest of the politics will take care of itself down the line, and we can deal with those issues later. But right now we're facing a deadline. We ought to get this done.
Well, is this about politics or is this about tax policy?
Well, it should be about our economy. It should be about the well-being of working Americans, and I think for most of the people who are voting, it will be. I understand, again, the objections that people have in our party to some elements of this compromise. But I say again that compromise necessitates accepting some things that you don't like. That's the nature of compromise. And if we don't do that, then we get back into the kind of gridlock that enrages the American people and retards our ability to deal with our problems.
Well, I say, is it about politics or policy? Because already last week we heard people begin to say, you know, Democrats are so mad that the president may wind up with an opponent in some of the early primaries in 2012. Do you worry that President Obama might wind up being a one-term president?
No, I don't worry about that at all, Bob, because I think he's done good things for the country. He's fighting for the American people and for progress, and that progress is going to show. The thing that would be worrisome to me is if we made a bunch of decisions based on short-term political calculations and forgot about why people sent us here, which is to get this economy moving, to cut through the clutter here, and do the things that are necessary to secure the future for this great country. So we're going to get that done, and I am very, very confident about the politics. But right now, if we don't take care of business, then the politics become more complicated later.
What about the START treaty?
One thing I should say, yes. There's no good politics in letting taxes rise on January 1st. Let me say, no party is going to benefit from that.
The START treaty. Do you think there's any chance now that you'll get a vote on that in this lame session?
I think there will. That's a critical piece for our national security. We need to verify what's going on the ground in Russia. It'll help us enormously in terms of our cooperation on issues like Iran and North Korea. We have to get it done. We can't delay that. So I'm hopeful that we're going to get a vote on that, and I think the support is there for it.
Let me just ask you this question. We saw these riots in London last week when people found out that the government was going to raise the price of going to college. We saw riots in Greece when government services had to be cut. We're seeing problems in Ireland with their budget. Are we at a point in this world where democracies have just gone in debt too heavily, where people want and have come to expect these services, but they really don't want to pay for them? Is that part of what we're seeing here?
Well, look, we're going to have a serious discussion in the coming years about how we get budget deficits under control. The first element of that, the President believes, is to get the economy growing at a robust rate. We've seen growth as a result of some of the things we've done and the inherent strength of the American economy. We got to do better. But we're going to have a serious adult discussion about what we can afford and what we can't, and what our true priorities have to be to make ourselves strong now and in the future. And we're going to have that discussion.
All right. David Axelrod, always a pleasure
Thank
to have
you.
you.